There's something different about people who remember life before cell phones. Maybe it's the way they can sit in silence without reaching for a screen. Maybe it's how they navigate using landmarks instead of GPS. Maybe it's that they can hold eye contact during an entire conversation without glancing down. Because life before cell phones didn't just mean different technology. It forged a specific type of psychological resilience that experts are only now beginning to understand. And by the end of this video, you're going to see why growing up without smartphones created some of the most adaptable people alive today. Let's start with something most people get completely wrong. The assumption is that constant connectivity makes us more capable, more informed, more connected. But people who remember life before cell phones prove that theory dead wrong. Picture yourself as a 12-year-old standing at a payphone outside a 7-Eleven on a summer evening in 1995. The metal cord feels warm from the sun. You're feeding quarters into the slot, each one making that satisfying clink. Your mom said to call when you're ready to be picked up, but you don't remember the exact time you're supposed to check in. The phone rings 4 times. No answer. You have 3 quarters left. Do you call again? Do you wait? Do you start walking home? The decision is entirely yours. The air smells like hot asphalt and Slurpees. A group of kids rides past on bikes, and you have to decide right now what to do next. No text message. No find my friends. Just you, 3 quarters, and your ability to think through consequences. Picture this. Friday afternoon 1993. You're 14 years old and standing in the school hallway. Your friend says, "Meet me at the mall at 20:00 tomorrow." That's it. No confirmation text. No on my way update. No running 10 minutes late message. You write nothing down. You just remember. And tomorrow you show up at 1:55 because being late means your friend waits with no way to know if you're coming. You scan the crowd. There they are, right on time, because you both understood the unspoken contract. This wasn't just punctuality. It was calibrated risk assessment. You learned to build mental models of reliability. You calculated travel time, anticipated obstacles, and showed up when you said you would because there was no safety net of instant communication. Psychologists call this executive function development. But for you, it was just how friendships worked. Here's what's remarkable: your brain built stronger neural pathways for planning and memory because failure had immediate social consequences. Today's teenagers can send 12 texts coordinating one meetup and still ghost. They've outsourced planning to their phones, never developing the internal locus of control you built by necessity. But you learned that your word, unmonitored and unconfirmed, had to mean something. This wasn't primitive planning. It was trust architecture. Consider a Saturday afternoon in 1989. You're 10 years old, lying on your bedroom floor. There's nothing to do. You've read your books twice. Your friends aren't home. TV has 4 channels and nothing good is on until evening. The silence is thick. Your mind begins to wander. You start building something with Legos, not following instructions, just creating. 2 hours disappear. You've built an entire city, complete with stories about who lives where and why. This wasn't wasted time. It was activation of your default mode network. You learned to generate entertainment from nothing. Neuroscientists now recognize this state as essential for creativity, self-reflection, and emotional processing. Here's what happened during those empty hours: your brain practiced making connections between unrelated ideas. You developed frustration tolerance. You discovered what you actually enjoyed when no algorithm suggested it for you. Modern children swipe through infinite content, their dopamine systems lighting up every 8 seconds. They never face the productive discomfort of having nothing. But you learned to be interesting to yourself, to mine your own thoughts for entertainment. This wasn't deprivation. It was creative incubation. Picture this. You're 16 years old. Your grandmother is in the hospital 3 states away. Your mom takes the call in the kitchen, and you watch her face change. After she hangs up, she sits you down. Your grandmother died 20 minutes ago. You weren't there. You didn't get to say goodbye. There was no FaceTime call, no last-minute text message. Just the finality of distance and the impossibility of being in 2 places at once. This wasn't cruelty. It was confrontation with permanent loss. You learned that some moments can't be recaptured, that absence has weight, that geography creates consequences no technology could erase. Psychologists call this stress inoculation through unavoidable grief. But for you, it was just how death worked. Here's what's extraordinary: you developed emotional self-regulation because you couldn't scroll away from pain. You had to sit with it. Today's young people can maintain digital presence across continents. They video chat with dying relatives, document every moment, create digital eternities. But they've lost something you gained: the understanding that some losses are absolute, that some goodbyes don't get do-overs. This wasn't trauma. It was reality calibration. Imagine you're 13 years old with a school project about ancient Egypt. You ride your bike to the library. The card catalogue has tiny drawers filled with alphabetized cards. You write down call numbers. You walk through aisles, running your fingers along spines. The books you need are in 3 different sections. One is checked out. You fill out a request form. You'll have to come back next week. Meanwhile, you use what you have: 2 books, one encyclopedia entry, and your own ability to synthesize limited information into coherent understanding. This wasn't inefficiency. It was deep research training. You learned to evaluate source quality, to read critically because you couldn't just click to the next result, to commit information to memory because looking it up again meant another trip. Experts recognize this as building cognitive load management. But for you, it was just homework. Here's what's remarkable: you develop patience with complexity and comfort with not knowing instantly. Modern students type questions and get 14 million results in 0.3 seconds. They confuse access with understanding, scrolling past depth for convenience. But you learn to work with constraints, to value hard-won knowledge. This wasn't limitation. It was intellectual resilience. Picture this: you're 11 years old. Your mom drops you off at the movie theater. "I'll be back at 40:30, she says. "Wait right here if I'm late." She drives away. You're alone with a pocketful of allowance money. The movie starts at 20:00. It's 10:45. You buy your ticket, choose your seat, sit in the dark with strangers. The film ends at 3:55. You walk outside. "No, Mum, yet. It's 4:15, 4:30. 4:4.
You don't wait.
You watch people. You think. At 50:00, she pulls up, apologizing about traffic. You climb in. Nothing bad happened. This wasn't neglect. It was trust in your competence. You learn to manage uncertainty, to self-soothe, to understand that most fears don't materialize. Neuroscientists call this developing secure independence. But for you, it was just a regular Saturday. Here's what happened during that waiting: your brain practiced emotional regulation without external validation or rescue. Today's parents track their children's locations in real time. Kids text, "Where are you?" after 5 minutes. They've never had to trust that adults will return, that they can handle the unknown. But you learned that you were capable, even when alone. This wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. Consider you're 15 years old and your car breaks down on a rural road. No cell phone, no GPS, no way to call for help. You pop the hood. You look at the engine, trying to remember what your dad showed you. The battery cables look loose. You tighten them. You try the ignition. Nothing. You check the oil. You jiggle wires. You sit on the bumper and think. A car passes, you flag them down. You ask if they know about cars. Together, you figure out it's the alternator. They drive you to the nearest house. You knock on a stranger's door. You use their phone. You wait 2 hours for help. This wasn't danger. It was building practical capability. You learn to troubleshoot, to ask for help from humans, not search engines, to feel comfortable with mechanical trial and error. Psychologists call this hands-on executive function. But for you, it was survival. Here's what's extraordinary. Your brain built spatial reasoning and mechanical intuition because YouTube tutorials didn't exist. Modern young people Google, "Why won't my car start?" and read 17 possible causes without ever opening the hood. They call roadside assistance for flat tires. But you learn to interact with physical reality, to trust your ability to figure things out. This wasn't recklessness. It was competence building. Picture this. You're in 8th grade. You say something cruel about a classmate, not online, face to face. In front of other people, you see their expression change. You watch hurt move across their face in real time. There's no delete button, no way to unsend the words. The next day at school, people look at you differently. Your comment has spread through whispered conversations. You have to face this person in the hallway. You have to decide, apologize or avoid. Either way, you live with what you said. This wasn't punishment. It was immediate feedback on social behavior. You learn that words have weight. That cruelty costs you. That repair requires vulnerability, not just typing, "Sorry, lol." Experts recognize this as developing hypervigilant social awareness. But for you, it was just the social ecosystem. Here's what happened. You calibrated your behavior because consequences were immediate and unavoidable. Today's young people can bully anonymously, block people who challenge them, curate their social failures out of existence. They never face the person whose life they affected. But you learned that relationships require maintenance. That trust is earned through consistent presence. This wasn't shaming. It was social intelligence training. Imagine you're 12 years old, reading a book on a summer afternoon, no notifications, no texts, no pings. Just you and 300 pages of story. You read for 3 hours straight. You're so absorbed you forget to eat lunch. You finish the book and sit quietly, processing the ending. No one to immediately text about it. No Goodreads review to write. Just you sitting with the story, letting it settle into your psyche. This wasn't entertainment deprivation. It was deep engagement practice. You learn to maintain attention across long time horizons, to delay gratification, to sit with complexity without immediately externalizing your reaction. Neuroscientists call this sustained focus capacity, but for you, it was just reading. Here's what's remarkable. Your brain built the neural infrastructure for deep work because shallow interruptions didn't exist. Modern readers check their phones every few minutes. Their average reading session is 14 minutes. They've trained their brains for constant task switching. But you learn to go deep, to build complex mental models, to think in chapters instead of tweets. This wasn't luck. It was cognitive training. Picture this. You're at a party at 17. You don't know half the people here. No way to pre-screen them on Instagram. No mutual friends list to reference. You have to walk up to strangers and talk. You read body language. You ask questions. You listen to tone. Someone tells a joke. You gauge whether it's funny by watching faces, not counting laughs. You're interested in someone. You have to express interest through eye contact, physical proximity, actual conversation. Rejection happens in real time. Acceptance too. This wasn't social torture. It was building unmediated social intelligence. You learn to read microexpressions, to manage awkwardness, to be present in your body during social interaction. Psychologists call this developing embodied social cognition. But for you, it was just how people met. Here's what's extraordinary: you can still read rooms, sense tension, navigate group dynamics without digital confirmation. Today's young people swipe through potential friends and partners like a catalogue. They rehearse conversations via text. They've never had to be fully present without the option to hide behind a screen. But you learn to exist socially without curation or escape routes. This wasn't hardship. It was authentic connection training. Consider your 16th birthday. Your friends throw you a surprise party. Someone brings a disposable camera. 27 exposures. Every shot has to count. You're not checking how you look. You're not retaking until perfect. You're just living the moment while occasionally someone captures it. A week later, you pick up the developed photos. Half are blurry. Your eyes are closed in two. But there's one perfect shot, you mid-laugh, surrounded by people who showed up in person. You put it in a shoebox. Years later, you find it again. The photo transports you completely. This wasn't primitive documentation. It was living before archiving. You learned to be present because you couldn't review and re-experience instantly. Memories formed stronger because you couldn't outsource them to the cloud. Neuroscientists call this enhanced episodic memory formation. But for you, it was just how birthdays worked. Here's what happened: your brain encoded experiences more deeply because you couldn't rely on digital playback. Modern young people take 200 photos per event and remember nothing. They experience life through screens documenting everything, present for nothing. But you learn that some moments are valuable precisely because they can't be perfectly preserved. This wasn't loss, it was presence. But some experiences cut deeper. Consider the moment you're 17 years old, and the person you've been dating breaks up with you after school. You walk to your car alone. You drive home in silence. No music streaming. Just radio static in your thoughts. You get home and sit in your room. No Instagram to check if they're already over you. No texts from friends who already heard. No Reddit thread about how to handle breakups. Just you and the raw feeling of rejection. You stare at the ceiling. You cry. You write in a journal. You call your best friend from the landline in the kitchen, where your family can overhear. You keep your voice steady. You say you're fine. This imprinted something crucial: feelings pass, even without immediate intervention or distraction. But that emotional resilience existed alongside something darker. You also remember being genuinely lost. Getting wrong directions from a gas station attendant and driving 45 minutes in the wrong direction before realizing. Having no way to tell anyone where you were. Feeling the grip of real fear. Having to figure it out alone or remain lost. This created people who hold both truths. They're capable of profound independence, and they remember what actual helplessness feels like. They value connection deeply, and they can survive without constant contact. They're comfortable with uncertainty, and they remember when uncertainty had real stakes. This complexity might be their most valuable inheritance. Let's return to that payphone outside the 7-Eleven. You're holding those last 3 quarters. You make the decision. You start walking home. You know the way. You've done this before. These people carry something the modern world desperately needs. They remember what it feels like to be unreachable. They remember navigating by memory and landmarks. They remember that boredom could be productive. They remember that you had to show up when you said you would. They're living proof that a resilience is built, not born. Competence comes from practice, not protection. Social intelligence requires actual presence. The best gift isn't a smooth path, but the confidence that you can find your way when lost. In a world of infinite connectivity, perpetual documentation, and algorithmic guidance, they stand as evidence of another way. Not perfect, not without costs, but a way that produced people who can sit with discomfort, solve problems without immediately Googling, show up on time without GPS, have conversations without checking their phones, and be alone without being lonely. They grew up in the last analog era, on the edge of a digital revolution they didn't choose, and somehow they learned to hold it all: the quietness and the noise, the disconnection and the deep connection, the certainty that some things are lost, and the confidence that they can find what matters.